Hello everybody, today I have 3 stunning DIY home decor ideas using natural seashells. Welcome to my crafting channel, I'm Alana from Upcycling NZ. Recently I posted a DIY video showing you my original idea on how to wrap and weave these beautiful scallop shells that I collected from the beach. So now I'll be using these in these 3 beautiful projects. For project 1, I'm going to reuse this unwanted dress, and it's made of a very light woven cotton. I'm going to rip that into strips. And before you say it, this dress was ordered online and looked nothing like the picture. Nobody was going to wear this and it was going to end up in the landfill, so I salvaged it, and I will get dozens of projects out of this piece of fabric. Subscribe to my channel for future videos if you want to see the different ways I'm going to use this. So now I have my fabric strips all ready. I'm going to make several different types of natural dyes for the fabric, and I want the colours to complement these shells. This is a bit of an experiment for me, and I want to see if I can achieve different colours using different natural dyes. The first one is peppermint tea, and I've allowed that to cool off. The second is just a black tea, and I've used bell tea, which is pretty popular in New Zealand. The third one is just some black instant coffee, and the fourth one is a French kiss craft tea, and it's tea leaves, so I'm just letting those steep while I put my fabric pieces into each of these cups. I'm going for a natural weathered look, so I'm not going to let them steep for too long. If you want it to be a bit darker, you would leave it in the tea for a bit longer. So I'll just squeeze those out. The peppermint tea smells amazing, but the coffee leaves a coffee smell on the pieces of fabric, so bear that in mind. And I'll strain that French tea. And I was hoping for a different colour from this, but really it was very similar to the peppermint tea, so it's a light yellow. So these were my results, and they're not contrasting as much as I would have liked, but they will work. So next I'm taking 2 meters of this rope that I got from the dollar store, and I'm going to find the halfway point, and I will start to attach my shells to it. I'm going to create a garland with these, but this idea was inspired by Delilah, who suggested that I do a curtain valance, hanging these from a curtain rod. So this is my variation on that, and I'm going to allow those shells to hang just a little bit lower than that rope. This is going to be quite a versatile project. It will be able to hang around a window, very much like a valance, or a valance as we say here in New Zealand. I'll be using this to hang around a door frame. So I've spaced out my shells, and I'm going to then start to add these pieces of fabric. And I'm just going to form a loop and pull the ends through. And I'll space those out until I like the way that it looks. I really love the free-form nature of this project because it really doesn't matter how you apply your shells or your fabric strips. There's no rhyme or reason to it. The only thing you really have to consider is that you need a lot of weight down the sides so that your piece across the middle doesn't sag too much. So I'm using a door frame because I don't have pretty windows to hang this around. And Delilah also suggested that I use some dried starfish. They would look amazing too, but I live in the middle of nowhere and I didn't have any, so if I ordered some online, they were not going to get here on time to do this project. Once in a while they wash up on the beaches, but they're far and few between, and I think I prefer knowing that they passed away naturally. Now I've moved to the ends of my rope and I'm tying a loop in them, and I'll pass through some strips of the fabric and tighten those up. I'm working on the sides next, so this is where I want to create a lot of weight. This time when I'm attaching the shells, I'm making sure that they don't overlap each other too much because they'll be hanging vertically. I love when my viewers give me great ideas for my next projects, so thank you Delilah, shout out for that. You wanted to see rustic, so I hope I'm delivering on that rustic feel. So if anybody else out there has some brilliant ideas for these, I'd love to hear them in the comments. Let me know, and any other craft ideas you'd like to see me attempt. I'm no expert by any means, but I definitely have dabbled in many different styles of craft over the years. At the very ends, I'm now just going to unravel those pieces of rope and create a little tassel. I'll do that on both ends. Then I'm going to take a variety of other shells to create that extra weight. So I'm just putting some hot glue deep down into the curl of the shell. Then I'll push down one of the fabric strips and make sure that it ends at the base of the shell so that it hangs down nicely. I reckon that by putting the glue deep into the curl of the shell, it gives the glue an opportunity to wrap around and lock in that piece of fabric. I'll add some shiny shells which have a lovely pearly luster on the top of them, and a few darker shells to add some contrast. And then that's about ready to hang. I tried it outside first, just hanging it from the centre, and it looked amazing down one of the posts on my balcony. You could absolutely use this as a bunting as well. Now I'll show you what it looked like around my door frame. I gave it a bit of a haircut until I liked the way that it was hanging. What do you think of this? For project number 2, I'm going to make use of this salvaged canvas. This was somebody's beautiful piece of artwork. I'm going to remove the canvas from the frame. It's attached with staples, so I'll just slide this little knife underneath and loosen those staples up, and then I'll get my pliers and remove all of the staples. I'm not too worried about the staple holes left in the wood because it's going to have quite a rustic feel when I'm finished with it. I won't waste the canvas either. I'm not going to use that, so I'll trim the rough edges off it and I'll roll it up and save it for another project. I want my project to be two-sided, so I'll take that hanger off it. But for now I'm just going to fit some of this beautiful copper mesh that you can buy from craft stores, and I'm just going to size that up and trim off those rough edges because I don't want any pokey bits. I thought this would resemble a fishing net somewhat to go with the shells. Now that I have that fitted, I'll paint the frame in an acrylic exterior black paint. I get my paint remnants from salvage yards, and this one is a beautiful colour black. It's more of a brown black. This coat is really just to seal the wood up and provide a background for my top coat colour. Before I paint the back of the frame, I want to remove that hanger. I wanted to use the back of the frame to attach my mesh because it had a flatter side to it. Now I'll just give it a quick coat of black. I noticed some rough surfaces when I was painting it, so I'm taking some fine grit sandpaper and giving it a very light sand. I'll use a wet wipe to remove the dust that caused. I'm adding a little bit of yellow exterior acrylic paint to this black. Yes, you heard me right, yellow. This will actually assist me in creating the effect that I want with the top coat. I'm just kind of dry brushing that all over the areas that I sanded back. So I'm using this metallic copper acrylic paint for my top coat. It's very hard wearing and water resistant. I'm using a sponge brush to apply this paint, and I'm going to offload most of the paint and then build the colour up across the black. And I'll allow a little bit of that black to show through. I found that if I do a solid coat of this colour, it looks a little bit cheap. And I've generally had to put a bit of gold to provide some contrast on it. But I'm not using gold this time. I want to stick to a very copper colour. I'll attach my mesh to the back of the frame, and I'm using a stapler. And I want to do that before I paint the back so that I can incorporate that into the design. I'm ensuring that I keep a lot of tension on the mesh as I'm applying it, and I end up putting staples on every crossbar on that mesh. Once I was happy with the way that that was attached to the frame, I went ahead and painted it using the same method with the sponge brush, and it created these lovely dark areas around the mesh, which I love. My throat's getting a bit croaky. I hope I'm not coming down with the cold that was going around at work. Next, I played around with placement of the shells and decided how many I'd like to use and where I'd like to place them. Now I'm just taking care to attach these to the mesh so that they sit in the correct spots and have the right amount of space between each shell. And I'm just tying these on with a bow to begin with. Once they're tied on, I'll flip it over and I'm going to tie the knot at the back so that I have the ends of my twine towards the back of the frame. I tied the bow on the other side first so that it made this part a lot easier to tie the knot at the back. Now I can trim the ends off the twine. Now that's done, I had to figure out a way to hang this because I wanted it to be two-sided. It couldn't hang from either side. So I found this piece of jewellery. This is a copper mesh cord which came off a broken necklace because I collect broken jewellery for my crafting. And I'll temporarily hot glue that in place while I secure it permanently. To do that, I'm using some twine and I'm threading it through between the mesh, and I'm not even sure if that's called mesh, it might be wire netting. And I'll leave the tail out to begin with, and then when I thread through my next wrap, I will put that thread through it so that it's locked at that end, and continue to wrap my twine around that, pulling tight from both ends as I go to really lock that piece of jewellery in at the top. That's not going to move once I've completed it, even if the glue heats up and doesn't last. Now I'll just tie that in a really tight knot and trim off those ends. I did that to both sides, and then I'm going to take a lighter and just burn off any excess fibres that are hanging off. Now you can hang this on a wall, or you could hang it outside on a balcony with both sides showing. A bigger one would make an awesome privacy screen. Let me know what you think of this one. Project number 3 is a nice simple one. We're going to just attach some beads to these beautiful shells. These have beautiful colours on both sides. And because we're using natural shells, I want to use natural beads. So I'm using wood beads for this. But to sharpen the ends of my twine to make it easier to thread the beads, I've attached some PVA glue. And that's just making it nice and easy to thread these beads on. Again, there's no rules around how you attach your beads to your string. I'm going to make a pattern, but you could go for a bohemian mix and match style, or really just make use of any beads that you've got that will fit on the string and that you have in your stash. I'm just tying a knot in the end and that one's complete. I'll use cream beads again for the next one, but I'm going to use some complementary colours to match that shell along the middle there. For the third shell, I'm using some pretty unusual beads. These were from a placemat, sort of oriental style placemat, and they have 2 holes in them. So I'll just put a normal bead on to start, and then I'll thread the 2 ends through the 2 holes in the what I'm now calling a bead. I thrifted the placemat for I think $1, and I got hundreds and hundreds of these beads out of it. They're wooden and I love the colour and the different style that it gives this third shell. And now those are ready to hang anywhere in your home. Well, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that it inspired you to spend time on the beach collecting shells to make your own beautiful home decor. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you all. Bye for now.